Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a big question if you're dreaming of property in Koh Samui. Off-plan or resale? Which way do you go?
It's a common dilemma, definitely.
We've been looking at some expert insights actually, specifically from Ocean Worldwide. They're a luxury agency based over in Phuket since 2004.
That's right, long time in the market. Their director, Sandra O'Neill, she's helped literally thousands of investors and families, mainly in Phuket and Koh Samui. Serious experience there.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is to, well, help you figure out which option, off-plan or resale, really fits your goals for investing in Koh Samui.
We want to lay out the pros and cons, the real practical stuff you need to consider for making a smart move on the island.
Okay, sounds good. Let's start with off-plan then, the shiny new stuff. What does that actually mean, buying off-plan in Koh Samui?
Well, essentially, you're buying a property, could be a villa, could be a condo before it's actually built, or sometimes while it's under construction.
So you're looking at plans, drawings.
Exactly. Plans, maybe some slick 3D renderings. You're buying the promise, the vision of the finished product.
Right, investing in potential. So what makes that attractive? Why would someone choose off-plan in Koh Samui?
There are some real pulls. Often, the initial price point can be lower. Developers want to get early sales to help fund the project.
Like an early bird discount.
Sort of, yeah. It can mean getting into the Koh Samui market with maybe less capital up front, especially if you're okay waiting.
Okay.
And then there's the customization. You often get a say in things like layouts, finishes, maybe upgrades, making it your place.
That sounds appealing.
Plus, if the market's moving up while it's being built, you could see some capital appreciation even before you get the keys. And developers often offer staged payments.
Spreading the cost out.
Exactly. Makes it more manageable than one lump sum.
Okay, that all sounds pretty positive. But, buying something that isn't built yet feels like there must be risks. What are the main worries with off-plan in Koh Samui?
Oh, absolutely. Risks are definitely there. Construction delays are, well, pretty common. Could be weather, could be sourcing materials, Things happen.
Pushing back your move-in date or when you can start renting it out.
Precisely. And there's always a risk, however small, that the finished product, it might not quite match up to the glossy brochure or your expectations on quality or the exact finishes.
So how do you mitigate that?
Research. Research the developer. It's crucial. Look at their track record. What have they built before? In Koh Samui or elsewhere, how do they handle things after the sale, like management?
Right, their reputation matters a lot.
Hugely. And this is non-negotiable. Get independent legal advice. Understand every detail of that contract, especially the payment terms, to make sure your interests are protected.
Solid advice. Okay, let's flip to the other side then. Resale properties in Koh Samui. What you see is what you get, right?
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Resale properties are just, existing homes. Someone's owned them before, and now they're back on the market.
Tangible. You can walk through it?
Exactly. It exists. It has a history, features you can actually see and touch.
So what are the big plus points for choosing resale in Koh Samui?
Well, the most obvious one is immediate occupancy. No waiting for builders. Once the deal's done, you can move in or start renting it out pretty much straight away.
Big deal if you want rental income fast, especially during high season.
Definitely. You can tap into that demand immediately, and as you said, you can physically inspect it. Check the condition, the layout, get a proper feel for the place and the neighborhood. Fewer unknowns.
Less uncertainty.
Right. And sometimes, depending on the seller's situation, you might have a bit more room to negotiate on the price compared to a fixed off-plan price list.
Okay, so bypassing the construction wait and uncertainty sounds good. But what are the potential downsides, the challenges with buying resale in Koh Samui?
Well, it's an older property, so features might be dated. You might need to factor in renovation costs to bring it up to scratch or just match your taste.
Okay, potential for extra spending there.
And there could be hidden issues, things you don't spot on a quick viewing. That's why getting a proper building survey done is so important for resale.
Finding potential problems before you commit.
Exactly. And sometimes in really popular spots in Koh Samui, you might face competition from other buyers, which could make negotiation a bit tougher.
Right. Okay, let's talk money. How do off-plan and resale stack up in Koh Samui when you look at the initial cost and maybe the longer-term value? First off, the initial outlay.
Generally, off-plan can start lower, as we said, to get those early sales. But keep in mind, developers might raise prices as the project progresses and sells.
So getting in early is key for the best price.
Often, yes. With resale, you're usually looking at a larger upfront payment because, well, you're buying the finished article right there and then.
Makes sense. And long-term value, how do they compare in the Koh Samui market?
Off-plan, especially in areas that are still developing, holds the potential for quite significant capital appreciation. If things go well, market conditions, the development itself is successful.
Higher potential, maybe higher risk?
Exactly. Resale properties, particularly in established areas of Koh Samui, they often offer more predictable, stable growth. You can look at past sales, rental history,
Got it. More data to go on.
right. But maybe less chance of that really rapid, sharp increase in value you might get with a successful off-plan project in a booming area.
And what about those costs that might bite you later? Hidden costs for either option in Koh Samui.
Good point. With off-plan, think about costs for any upgrades you choose that aren't standard. Maybe fees if you change your mind about something in the plan, potentially penalties if you have to pull out, though that's less common.
Okay, and for resale?
Resale, well, immediate repairs might be needed. Renovations, as we mentioned, just general upkeep of an older place.
Things that need fixing straight away.
Could be. And for both, don't forget the standard stuff.
Yeah.
Legal fees for the purchase, annual property taxes, insurance. You need to budget for all of that.
Definitely need to factor those in. Okay, let's zoom in on the Koh Samui market itself. What's the current vibe? What should buyers be aware of? Maybe drawing on that Ocean Worldwide experience you mentioned?
Yeah, the Koh Samui market and Sandra O'Neill's team at Ocean Worldwide sees this day in, day out. It's very linked to tourism. It breathes with the tourist seasons.
So high season means higher prices.
Generally, yes. High season, say December to February, you typically see more demand for sales and rentals and prices can edge up. Then in the low season, maybe May to October, things might quieten down and sellers could be a bit more open to offers.
So timing your purchase could make a difference.
It certainly can. Those seasonal shifts are a real feature of the market in places like Phuket and Koh Samui.
And looking forward, any projections for Koh Samui property? What's Ocean Worldwide seeing?
Well, wider economic forecasts always have some caution, but Koh Samui itself, it still has huge appeal. For lifestyle, for investment, Ocean Worldwide has seen that consistently.
But due diligence is still key.
Always. Especially with off-plan, where project success and market shifts play a big role. What tends to hold up very well are those prime properties, think luxury seaview pool villas in the best spots. They seem likely to remain strong performers.
You mentioned tourism being key. How exactly does that play out in property prices, especially for rentals, which Ocean Worldwide handles a lot of?
Tourism is the engine, really. More tourists usually means more demand for places to stay, which pushes up rental prices, particularly for short-term holiday lets.
Right.
And those rental prices can swing more with the seasons than actual sales prices. If you're buying to rent out, you really need to understand those seasonal patterns.
Makes sense. Location, 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 always crucial. Based on Ocean Worldwide's knowledge, where are the prime spots in Koh Samui for investment?
Well, the established hotspots tend to be areas like Beaufort, Fisherman's Village there, Choang, which is lively, and Lamai. They've got the infrastructure, the restaurants, the shops, huge tourist appeal.
Meaning good rental yield and resale value.
Generally, yes. That's what Sandra O'Neill often advises clients looking for stability and strong returns.
Okay, but what if you're looking for maybe better value initially, perhaps more growth potential? Are there emerging areas in Koh Samui?
Oh, for sure. Places like Bangpor, Manam, Trang Mon are definitely worth a look. Prices might be more accessible than the absolute prime areas.
And the potential for growth is there.
Yes, there's potential for appreciation as infrastructure improves, maybe new resorts or shops open up. They often offer a slightly quieter lifestyle too, which appeals to some.
When you're choosing within Koh Samui, what about practical things? Accessibility, amenities, what should buyers prioritize?
Absolutely key. You want to think about proximity to the airport, main roads, good shops and restaurants, maybe hospitals or schools depending on your needs.
Convenience matters.
It really does. Properties that tick those boxes tend to be more desirable for living or renting. Interestingly, Ocean Worldwide often sees permanent residents perhaps preferring quieter spots, while rental investors might target the busier hubs for that peak season demand.
Right, different priorities. Okay, let's talk financing. Getting a mortgage in Koh Samui, especially for off-plan, how does that work for international buyers?
It can be tricky. Generally speaking, Thai banks aren't quick to lend mortgages to foreign nationals.
Okay, so that route might be closed.
Often, yes, but sometimes, especially with bigger off-plan developments, the developer themselves might offer a financing plan. Staged payments tied to construction, like we mentioned,
Worth looking into, but carefully.
definitely. Sandra O'Neill would stress that read the small print. Otherwise, you're often looking at private international loans or just using your own savings.
And is it a similar story for financing resale properties in Koh Samui? Still tough for foreigners with Thai banks.
Pretty much the same, yes. Thai bank mortgages are difficult. So, again, it often comes down to personal savings, maybe a loan from your home country secured against assets there, or perhaps private lenders who specialize in expat finance, though their interest rates might be higher.
You mentioned those staged payments for off-plan again. Can you give a rough idea of how that structure usually works?
Sure. Typically, you'd pay a small reservation fee up front to secure the unit. Then you'll have larger installments tied to specific construction milestones.
Like when the foundations are done.
Exactly. Maybe foundations, then when the main structure is up, then the roof, then interior work, and a final payment on completion and handover. The percentages for each stage vary between developers.
Got it. Okay, this next bit feels really important. Legal stuff. What are the absolute must-knows about Thai property law for foreigners buying in Koh Samui? I imagine Sandra O'Neill and her team deal with this constantly.
Constantly. And yes, this is critical. Getting expert legal advice, as Sandra O'Neill always emphasizes, is non-negotiable. The headline is, foreigners generally cannot own land freehold in Thailand.
Right, that's the big one. So what are the alternatives?
There are established legal ways. Leasehold is very common. You lease the land, often for 30 years, usually with options to renew. That's secure and widely used. Another route, maybe more complex, is setting up a Thai limited company to own the land. But that involves ongoing admin, legal, tax stuff. Or there's usufruct, a right to use the property for a set time or even for life.
Sounds like you definitely need a lawyer to navigate that.
Absolutely essential. A specialist Thai property lawyer who understands foreign ownership structures. Don't even think about proceeding with that one.
And what about due diligence? Making sure the property itself is okay.
Just as crucial. It's your safety net. You need a thorough land title check, verify ownership, make sure there are no weird claims or debts against the land.
Check the paperwork.
Meticulously. Also, look into zoning laws. What can you actually do with the property? And consider any environmental factors that might affect it down the line. Skipping due diligence is asking for trouble.
Okay, and the contracts themselves. When you get that purchase agreement for a Koh Samui property, what key clauses should buyers really focus on? Again, drawing on Ocean Worldwide's experience.
The contract is king, so go through it with your lawyer, line by line. Pay super close attention to the payment schedule. Does it match what you agreed? And for off-plan, does it align with construction progress?
Right.
Check the completion clause, what's the agreed date, and what happens if the developer is late? What are your rights? And look carefully at the defect liability period. How long is the developer responsible for fixing any snags or defects after handover?
Really important details. Okay, let's think about the investment side again. Return on investment ROI. For off-plan in Koh Samui, what can buyers realistically expect? What are the trends Ocean Worldwide sees?
Well, the potential is there for significant capital appreciation with off-plan, mainly because you often get in at a better price. If the market's good and the project is well done, early buyers could see really decent growth by completion.
That's not guaranteed.
Not at all. That's the higher risk part. Market changes, construction delays, developer issues, they can all impact your return. Higher potential reward, but definitely higher risk.
And resale value trends in Koh Samui.
Yeah.
More predictable.
Generally, yes. Resale offers more predictability. You can often find historical sales data, rental figures for similar places nearby, gives you a better baseline.
Less guesswork.
Right. The potential for that explosive growth might be lower than a really successful off-plan launch in a hot area, but it's often seen as a more stable investment. Plus, you have that immediate rental income possibility.
How important is it then to really analyze market demand in Koh Samui when choosing between off-plan and resale?
Oh, it's vital. As Sandra O'Neill's team knows well, tourism heavily influences demand and prices in Koh Samui. Areas popular with tourists usually mean better rental returns and values tend to hold up well.
But you need to look long-term, too.
Definitely. Think about sustainable tourism, broader economic factors. Is off-plan in an up-and-coming area worth the gamble for higher growth? Or is the stability of resale in a prime spot better for you? Talking to local experts like Ocean Worldwide, understanding those seasonal demand shifts, it's all part of making an informed choice.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly to making it your own customization. With off-plan in Koh Samui, What kind of scope do you usually get?
That's often a big selling point for off-plan, isn't it? You usually get choices for things like flooring, tiles, paint colors, maybe kitchen and bathroom fittings.
Upgrades possible.
Often, yes. And sometimes, depending how early you buy and the developer's flexibility, you might even tweak the internal layout a bit, within limits, of course. The earlier you commit, generally, the more options you have.
So you can really put your stamp on it. What about resale? What are the limits on customization there?
With resale, well, you're working with what's already there. Renovations are always possible, of course, but major changes, moving walls, changing plumbing can get expensive and disruptive.
Might have to live with some things you don't love.
Potentially, yes. Or factor in a hefty renovation budget.
How does all this customization, or lack of it, affect the property's value in Koh Samui?
Good question. Smart, tasteful customization on an off-plan can definitely add appeal and value. But going too niche, too personal might narrow your pool of buyers later on.
Right. Keep resale in mind.
Exactly. For resale, well-chosen renovations that match what buyers in Koh Samui are looking for can add real value, but dated or poorly done upgrades, they might not give you much return.
Makes sense. Okay, the negotiation part, the art of the deal. How can you effectively negotiate on an off-plan property price in Koh Samui?
Well, remember that list prices, especially early on, often have a bit of wiggle room. Developers want those early sales. So do your homework. What are similar off-plan projects selling for nearby?
Use comparable sales.
Yes, and don't be afraid to walk away if the numbers don't work. Sometimes offering a larger deposit can give you a bit more leverage on the price. And think about negotiating extras, maybe appliances, landscaping bundled into the deal.
Okay. And how does negotiation differ for resale properties in Koh Samui? More room to haggle.
Often, yes. With resale, the seller's motivation comes into play. If a property's been on the market a while, they might be more flexible.
Use the survey results.
Absolutely. If your survey flags up necessary repairs or things that are outdated, use that to justify a lower offer. And again, research what similar resale properties have actually sold for recently. That's your ammo.
Does when you negotiate matter much in Koh Samui? Timing.
It can, yeah. For off-plan, like we said, that early launch phase is often the best time for deals and choice. For resale, maybe hitting the low tourist season could work in your favor. Potentially fewer buyers around, sellers might be keener. And just keeping an eye on the general economic climate always helps inform your strategy.
Right. Last big area then. Living with the investment. Maintenance, management. For an off-plan property in Koh Samui, what's the long-term upkeep reality?
Well, it's new, so you'll likely have warranties for a bit, but long-term maintenance is on you. Think about the costs of maintaining modern features, smart tech, pools, gyms if it's in a development.
Communal fees.
Exactly. Research typical common area maintenance fees for similar places in Koh Samui so you know what ongoing costs to expect.
And resale maintenance in Koh Samui's. More immediate concerns, maybe.
Could be. The survey should highlight major things, but yeah, you might face some immediate repair needs. Budgeting for fixing things, replacing older appliances, keeping up the garden. It might be more hands-on initially.
And whether it's off-plan or resale, if you're planning to rent it out, what are smart long-term management strategies in Koh Samui?
Using a professional property management company in Koh Samui can be a lifesaver, especially if you're not living there full-time.
Takes the hassle away.
Totally. They handle finding tenants, collecting rent, dealing with repairs. Also, regular inspections are key, whichever route you go, just to catch small issues before they become big ones. And always, always budget for maintenance and repairs. Set aside some of that rental income.
Sound advice. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive on Koh Samui property, it's clear there's a lot to weigh up. What's the bottom line for listeners trying to choose between off-plan and resale?
It really truly boils down to you, where specific investment goals, how comfortable you are with risk, your financial situation. Off-plan offers that brand new appeal, potential growth, but with construction and market risks.
And resale.
Resale gives you certainty in existing property, maybe immediate income potential, but it might need work and perhaps offer slower growth.
So final thoughts for someone wrestling with this decision in Koh Samui right now?
Be really honest with yourself about your priorities. Is it maximum profit potential, or is getting enjoyment out of it sooner more important? What's your actual risk tolerance, your timeline? And I can't stress this enough. Do your homework, thorough due diligence, and get expert advice. Legal and real estate professionals on the ground in Koh Samui, like the team at Ocean Worldwide, are invaluable.
Great advice. And maybe a final thought for everyone listening. When you picture your Koh Samui dream, what pulls you more? That immediate satisfaction of walking into your finished resale home today, or the anticipation and potential upside of watching your off-plan vision become reality tomorrow? Something to definitely mull over. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.